Yeah, so let's talk about the four areas. So early childhood, basic education, higher ed, and technical and vocational education. So in terms of early childhood, one of the biggest things that they talked about as a problem is stunting. So it's not just about education,
Mm,
it's also about health. And one of
Nutrition.
the things that is being shown here in this report is that oftentimes it's been very siloed. And so the idea is to integrate more. What we're seeing is it's not just the change in the curriculum, but it's the implementation. How are we supporting teachers in the changes that has to be done? Training in particular is something that they've emphasized.
Ano yung problema sa training? Ano yung napansin nila?
Mhm. So one of the things that they talked about was that the teachers can't implement them with adequate support.
What we're talking about here right now is a holistic approach to a very complex problem. So siguro yung mga viewers natin ba't itong ganitong problema hindi na-discuss, itong ganitong problema hindi. It's hard because when you're looking at a holistic approach, there are obviously some things that hindi natin matatamaan eh.
sa akin, I think yung konsepto ng puhunan, ang kinabukasan natin, ang puhunan natin para sa kinabukasan natin bilang bahagi ng proyektong Pilipino, ang pagtatalakay ng mga nosebleed na topic katulad nito. Day in and day out. So, katulad ng binanggit ko sa simula nito, marami tayong tinalakay dito sa Proyekto Pilipino na makikita lang natin ang totoong halaga at paano makikinabang tayong lahat sa pagtatalakay nito pagkatapos ng mahabang panahon.
Magandang araw mga kaproyekto. Welcome to Proyekto Pilipino. And this week, we are doing a follow-up on our episode on the report of the EDCOM 2. And this week, we're very privileged and we're very grateful to have with us Dr. Limlingan, who has been an educator. Really, his first love, aside from, of course, his wife and his family, is education. He has taught for years. He is a professor at the AIM, professor at Ateneo, because his background, really, his educational background is in business administration. Graduating from Ateneo de Manila for his undergraduate degree, his master's, and then his doctorate from Harvard Business School. And he has spent years as an educator, and as Dr. Limlingan said, his biggest supporter is his wife, who knows how to run a stock brokerage. But I will let Dr. Limlingan tell his story because his journey alone, and now I would say I think one of the most logical, solid, and hopeful voices in education. So I'd like to let Dr. Limlingan share his journey and then his advocacy in education. Dr. Limlingan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. With your indulgence, I'll elaborate a lot on my life story.
Yes, please.
Actually, I was planning to be an engineer. I took AB engineering in Ateneo.
Okay.
But then my father died, and I didn't want to be a burden on my mother, so I wanted to be a working student. But at that time, Ateneo was introducing their Master in Business Management program. So our student counselor, Father Ledesma, said, "Why don't you take this course? No, because if you go on to engineering, you'll just get another bachelor's degree, and this one you get a master's degree in business." But I said I want to be engineer, and they said, "No, you can go into industrial management and so forth, and more important, we'll give you a loan." So that's why I chose to go into business, not to be an engineer, no. Then after that, when I was in business, Father Bo Maisel calls me up and says, "No, you have to teach in this Ateneo Graduate School of Business in the evening." Because but I said, "Father, I already paid off my loan. I don't owe you anything." He says, "No, you always owe Ateneo everything you are." So I had to teach, which I did, which was a big sacrifice because I had to go to Pabra in the evening, teach from 6 I think to 8 and go home on that. But then I got to like it. My friend said, if you like teaching so much, why are you doing it part-time and not full-time? So I just applied to AIM. That's when I became decide that I was a teacher. No, that was so I did become a teacher initially. It's when I had to teach, thanks to Father Bo myself. No, and then the other thing that happens is so when I was teaching. We had this Thai student who was whose thesis was to put up a brokerage in Thailand, no, and it looks good. So I wanted to, at that time my wife was retired because she was taking of our children. So then it became an emptiness. So she was looking for something to do. So I said, maybe I should go into a brokerage business. So I asked, and they said they were bidding out 5 brokerage business, no? And of course, I didn't have a chance because I was, not a big businessman and so forth. And then what is this? The secretary of the Makati Stock Exchange at that time said, the president says we need an academic to be a broker because they're all non-academic. So if you want the seat, it is yours. So I got that seat because I was a professor. Okay. Yeah. And then the funny other part of this, that's what I want to tell you, is because I want to have teachers think that there are possibilities. The other thing is when I retired from AIM because the dean said, we have to retire you because the students are calling AIM the Ancient Institute of Management. So I took retirement at 65, and then my student who happens to then run the MCI because the family owns says, why don't you spend some time with us? And I said, I'll spend all my time with you. So because my student, because he was my student, his name is Sid Consunhi, is the president of the MCI Holdings. He made me his managing director. So actually, this is the funny part I tell my student. You do what you want in life. The financial reward will come later. Do not start with looking for financial reward. Start looking what you do. Okay? Even if you don't get the financial reward, you will actually be happy. And sometimes it's seeking to do what you want best. Sometimes you're financially rewarded. And I've been blessed with that, no? Yeah. Now, so as I said, in 2020, because of the COVID, our children quarantined us in the house. We couldn't do anything. And of course, I was ashamed that I was staying in the house and my boss was going around looking at the construction sites, and I was drawing a salary. So I retired. So I wasn't doing anything except watching Netflix movie until I saw an item which struck me, that there is this Secretary Briones demanding an apology from the World Bank for releasing a study on bad performance of the students. I thought, you don't kill or punish the messenger, no? It had nothing to do with it. But you know what shocked me more is the World Bank apologized. I don't know why, So I said, the World Bank is... So I got studied about PISA because they were talking about PISA, the program, I think, for international student assessment, no? So the more I studied it, the more, of course, I became depressed, really depressed, because we are, I think, last in reading, second to the last in math and so forth. And I said, is there any bright spot here, no? And then I got a hunch, no, which I'm an academic. So I said, maybe if I segregate the performance of the private school students to the private, there's a difference. And it turned out that there was a difference. They were performing much better. Later on, I found a study by Dr. Paqueo and Orbeta, which shows that if you segregate the performance of the private school students, they are at par or a little bit above par with their counterparts in countries of the similar level of economic development. No, the one that is really bringing it down is of course the public school students. And unfortunately, only 12% of our students in basic education go to private school. 88% go to public school. So my initial strategy, because I found out from my work with my community college that there are vouchers. So my initial thing is I push for more vouchers, in effect, to bring the 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 students from the public school to the private school. Because if I can get them from the public school to the private school, their prospects brightens, no? But then after a while, I had to face the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is that there's something wrong with DepEd. It's something that I never wanted to tackle because it's a difficult one. And the thing that the first that struck me is when I look at DepEd, it had about 1 million employees. And that was startling to me because in the private sector, the biggest corporation, San Miguel, has only 45,000 people. And they have a Ramon Ang to run it, no, as the executive. And then we have these people running it, like sorry to say, Secretary Briones running it. It's a million people, no? So, and then the other thing that I found out, again, as an academic, there was no study of DepEd as there was no management study. How do you run DepEd, no? So much study has been done on the curriculum, teacher development, and so forth. But really, how do you run a million employee organization? Because it's the only one. The one that comes closest to this is our military. They're about 200,000 soldiers. But our DepEd is that. So that's why I came out and then my proposal based on that is first, of course, is to expand the voucher system to get as much as out. Secondly, I know it's not the best, but to devolve them to the local governments. My work on that is I'm a regent of the Pabantasan ng Pasig. A fellow regent is Dr. Ona, who used to be the head of the Department Health. And he was telling me that they transferred the hospitals. The Department of Health used to run about 700 hospitals. They devolved about 90% of that to the local government and says it worked, no? Then, of course, they put up PhilHealth. So for me, the model really for devolution is what was done in Department of Health, including setting up a PhilHealth, a system for financing health service, no? So those are my 3 proposals, no? The other one that I was proposing is because if you devolve, because when I said devolve it to the local government units, they say, yeah, but there are some local government who cannot do it. So that's why I'm pushing for charter schools. Because there are some local governments who may not want or don't have the capacity to do that. Then what you do is you have charter schools. So charter schools, as we know in the US, are public schools that are managed by private, not for profit, for non-profit, but the private sector. So it's a partnership. So that's my 4 reforms. You know, when you do reforms, you don't do 100 reforms. Okay. Yeah. In fact, my reform is only 3 reforms, really, and that's what I'm just been pushing about, no? Because again, from management, yeah. Sorry, I was running along. Yeah.
No, this is very exciting. But so just to review, ano yung 4 na reforma na gusto natin?
Okay, the first one is right now, interesting. We have school vouchers. And the reason for the school voucher is because when K-12 was introduced, the private sector was prepared for, kasi when you had K-12, there are 2 years of additional schooling. So you need more rooms. So the private sector had rooms, but then the public sector didn't have rooms. So they had to come out with vouchers. So that when the public school student graduates, finishes 4th year, they have no high school to go to. So they gave them vouchers. That's how it started, out of necessity. the Asian Development Bank is very successful. So my proposal is to expand on that. No, first is to increase the amount, and secondly, to extend it to the kinder and grade school. Because I was talking to Senator Gatchalian, and he says, you know, the other problem is we have the highest dropout rate in Asia, in ASEAN, no? Meaning that for every 100 students who enter grade 1, only 51% finish grade 12. And I said, really, it's because of really financial. And the dropout starts at grade 2. So if you give vouchers to kinder and grade 2, it will continue. Okay. One of the things that they were always complaining now and so forth is because he says, how come in CHED or the SUC, it's mainly the higher income? And I said, the reason for that is they never get to finish high school. The poor never get to finish high school. That's why the people who get into college are those high income, because na sila sa grade school pa lang, nawawala na sila. So why are you saying that they are not represented? Because they never even get to high school. So you have to get them through grade school and high school. Then your plan of giving free college education works. Right now, your free college education doesn't work because the people whom you want to target are not eligible. They're not even high school graduate. Anyway, so that's my proposal.
So Professor, yung unang ano natin is the voucher system, which to my understanding solves a couple of problems. The first is because of the economic situation, parents are actually moving their kids from the private schools to the public schools.
Yes, during COVID.
The infrastructure is there in the public school, in the private school, so they could accommodate a lot more students.
Yes.
So the voucher system actually helps spread around and bring kids back to the private schools. Okay, if that's the case, what's your second reform?
Okay. The second reform is after studying the DepEd as a management consultant, I say it's hard to reform. I have to say, if outstanding educators like Brother Armin, Brother Andrew, Dr. Adalberto cannot reform it, okay? Well, that's a theory in management. If you put the best people to run an organization and it's still dysfunctional, the only solution then is to dissolve it. The way to dissolve it, of course, now is to transfer the grade school and high school to the local government. Of course, they say they're not the best, but then, as I said, the only question is which is better? Who can manage it better, the head or the local government? And my argument is that a lot of local governments can do that. What about those who cannot? And that's my third proposal, which is to put up charter schools. Put up charter schools, no? And finally,
let me interrupt here. Father
sorry.
and Professor, do any charter schools exist in the Philippines at present? Is this a concept that has been attempted anywhere?
Well, I'm not sure because my impression is there has to be a law. That's why I'm lobbying with certain congressmen. But Father Tito says that Rex Gatchalian told him it can be done by a local government. I don't know. I hope it can be done. But
maybe
I don't know of any charter school yet.
Yeah, for basic ed. No? But Professor, maybe what would be close, Professor and Manolo, would be the local colleges or universities. For example, the city of Makati University was established by a local ordinance. Because Dr. Limlingan, we all know our good friend Mr. Lopez, no? He used to be president of University of Makati, no? Si Tommy Lopez.
Tommy Lopez, yes.
And then also I sit on the board of regents of Taguig City University. Both established by local ordinances, and both are not accredited with CHED. But because of the local law, they're able to give degrees, no? Of course, the setback would be when they have courses that need licenses because they're not recognized by the CHED. they cannot let their students take the
I
test.
see.
So, but I asked Tommy Lopez, God rest his
Yeah.
soul. Tommy,
Yeah.
because at that time we were getting ourselves accredited in Taguig City University, no?
Yeah.
I told Tommy, magpapa-accredit ka ba? I don't need them. I have better standards. I have better quality.
Yeah, that's true.
How Tommy is, no?
That's
So,
true. But I thought they passed a law. They got a law. I don't know.
yeah, it's
So
a
they did
local
it by just by
ordinance. Local
ordinance
ordinance.
lang.
Yung fourth and last reform na kailangan natin.
The charter school, no? The professor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the charter school, Manolo, that would be the fourth, to consider that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If we I hope if it can be done, I don't know. But again, we have to convince the local government to do that. This is the contrast. I'm a regent of the Pamantasan. For some reason, well, because Otto is new, no? So lahat ang attitude there is we have to clear everything with CHED, no? Of course, I keep telling there, bakit sa University of Makati, sabi ni Tommy Lopez, just disregard them, may pera naman tayo. Hindi, sabi no, kasi they want to qualify for what they call yung Unifast law.
Yeah,
Maybe
also,
yata
yeah.
yung CHED sa Unifast.
But
I cannot pera yan natin pwedeng taboy and so forth. But yeah,
Tito, I know that if correct me if I'm wrong, meron din tayong mga sort of little pocket experiments where the private sector sort of adopts a public school. I know the Ayala Corporation has done that for.
As far as I know, no, and maybe if Dr. Limlingan can add to this, Ayala set up APEC years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about private education. That's why they're doing well. Big business is involved. Ayala is there. The SM Group is there. Of course,
Pinma also.
And Pinma. Pinma is doing very well. But I keep telling, Pinma has only 150,000 students. There are 28 million students in the public schools. It's a drop in the bucket.
But the other concept, Professor and Manolo, is that APEC, no? And
yes.
That was first brought in by Luli De Leon. When Luli De Leon was executive director of Ayala Foundation, she brought in Pearson to talk
yes,
about
yeah.
APEC, yeah. Because Pearson has this in Bangladesh, in India.
Yes.
The concept is, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Professor, is that they were established by a department order. So they're excused from.
I don't know.
So, Dr. Limlingan, this is something we should need to study, no? Kasi we can and see how we can do this also. Because what they did, Dr. Limlingan, was executive order by Secretary Armin. Yes. So, Dr. Limlingan, you do away with, you need playgrounds.
Yeah.
You need laboratories.
Yeah.
Dr. Limlingan, from experience, maybe just to give you, from experience, around a year ago, I'm doing now, Dr. Limlingan, out of school youth, using the outcome. But what I'm using as my network is the Caritas Philippines. So I'm going
yes. Catholic charities, no?
Yes, so our schools are the parishes. So the parish gives the room for our out of school youth on weekends because they're working. So, and then the one helping us was very good, was very excited and said, why don't you apply to be an accredited senior high school for alternative learning system? Okay. So they really encourage us and they made us write everything. So we sent it. We're in region 4A. That's our region in DepEd, no? So we sent, and then we were told we have to open from kinder to senior high school. We have to have a building. We have to have a playground, laboratory. We cannot afford that, no? So back to square one, no? Now, APEC did away with that. To my understanding, I may be wrong, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, the idea is they will set up classrooms beside public high schools that cannot accommodate people who want to go to them. Now, they offer at that time, as far as I know, around 12,000-14,000 tuition, and then Dr. Limlingan, the voucher of DepEd. So for parents who are willing to pay a little bit extra for better education, go to APEC. And it was successful, at least pre-pandemic, no? But again, that's one model. But again, Dr. Limlingan does not address the problem of the poorest of the poor, because the poor cannot afford 12,000-14,000 tuition, no? But it's a good example of public-private sector partnership, no?
Yes. Incidentally, we in the pamantasan ng Pasig, because it was free, we had about, I think, 3,000 who could qualify, no? But we had slots only for about 1,300. So Mayor Soto, instead of say we'll expand the pamantasan, said, oh sige, we'll actually give vouchers for those who cannot be accommodated to study in private schools. And we last September, we signed an agreement with Arellano of University of Pasig and the Pasig Catholic College to absorb our surplus. But this is the important thing. We wanted that scholarship to be the poorest, to the poorest 20%. And we said, bakit yung voucher ang kumukuha, hindi yung poorest? And the argument for that is you give a voucher, let's say for 20,000, but that's not enough for the poorest because they need no. So the one who get that 20,000 are yung less poor, yung nasa marginal na. They just need 20,000 to go over the top. But if you want to if you want to really get the poorest of the poor, you have to really fund them everything, no? So that's why ang grant namin sa Pasig is 35,000 per semester or 70,000. Because I think 20,000 will be used for tuition. The 50 will be used to give allowance to the students, no? So these are the policies that I tried to keep explaining to our legislators. Well, I guess my approach has been to the legislator because I have to tell you, they say politicians are difficult to deal with. People who say that have not dealt with bureaucrats. Okay, so I find it, I know, that's why I go the legislative route rather than the administrative route kasi alam ko yung ang hirap and then yung politician, they have an incentive to be elected yung bureaucrats have no incentive
Professor,
how can you get them out? How can you pressure them? Wala unless you talk to somebody higher up in the political, no? But they outlast them They always look at politicians as somebody who are just temporary They are there forever That's why
Professor,
my tendency is to deal with them. So my hats off to you for trying to deal with them, no?
Professor, I wanted to ask you, pagdating dun sa plano nyo, am I understanding it correctly? It's in many ways, it would start with something like a conditional cash transfer because kung magbibigay tayo ng voucher para makapasok yung bata sa pribadong eskwelahan, kailangan may kapalit, 'di ba? Yung kailangan pumasok yung bata, kailangan alagaan yung bata on the part of the parents. So there would be this commitment on the part of the parents. Would that be correct?
Yes. But based on the studies, the Filipino parents are committed to the education of their children. They know that it's the only way out of poverty. You don't have to motivate them.
Which brings me to my next two questions, Professor. My first question was, I remember nung pinag-uusapan nito ang K-12 at ang pagtaas ng mga sweldo ng mga guro, a strange phenomenon occurred, which was the private schools started losing teachers because mas attractive yung sweldo sa public school. So is this still a problem? And what happens now? Kung kunyari itatag itong 4 na reforma na gusto nyo, baka naman pumasok yung mga bata sa private school at wala namang mga teacher. Is this, I'm just curious about
No,
this.
it's not okay. I face the same problem. I said I'm the chairman of Community College GNC, no? Bagua National Colleges, because actually, interesting, that's over 100-year-old school. It was founded by teachers. My father was a teacher, and they were teaching in the parish school. And because remember, when the Americans came in, the first thing is separation of church and state. That's why the Catholic Church started putting up parish schools, just like they did in the US. So my father and several others were teaching in the parish school. And napalitan yung parish priest. Yung new parish priest, hindi lang makasundo. So nag-alsa balutan, they put up GNC. Anyway, so because of that, because my father was president, so I got elected as chairman. So the first thing that we had was this problem. So I didn't know anything, no? So I then look around again because of my business background. I said, well, it seems that despite this problem, some people are doing very well. They're doing very well. No?
Right. Yeah.
So I thought I cannot name him because he will disown me. And I talked to him, he's the president of a college, and I said, oh, how do we compete with free? Hindi ba? And then higher pay. Sabi niya, alam mo, for me, what we do is like this. Okay? Sure, they want to go to the public school because higher pay. So ginagawa namin, we bring them, we give the lower pay. Yung mga galing, we promote them. Yung mahina, itataboy namin sa public schools where they get a higher pay, but they are poor performers. That's why I cannot cite him. And that's what's happening. Because sure, the pay in the public school is very good. But as I mentioned in my article, it's working in hell.
Yeah.
And therefore, when they do that, some of them will come back to us at a lower pay.
Yeah.
No, so it's getting good teachers in the private school is maybe it's a problem, but it's not a critical problem. Tapos sabi niya, the other thing is the public school is only one set mind. I mentioned it by column. Parang si Henry Ford. He says, the customer can get any color he wants so long as it's black. So the public school, there's only one curriculum. So what you do is you offer Montessori.
Yeah.
Montessori. No? So, yun. So, our Montessori was successful because DepEd is not offering Montessori. In business, we call that product differentiation. We have a company selling only one kind of product. So, it's easy to come out with different kinds of product. No?
Okay, Professor, my next question was yung the counterpart naman, again, nung panahon pa ito nung debate over K-12, was educators were shocked that one of the biggest groups organized against education reform were parents because ayaw nila ng dagdag na mga taon.
Yeah, additional cost.
And additional cost. So when we have this system na pinipropose nyo, baka, kung may aangal na mga magulang na itataas ang buwis namin, ang gastos ng gobyerno tataas para pumunta lang ang pera sa bulsa ng pribadong sektor, how do we address this?
Well, I always put it this way. Excuse me, but you do not pay taxes. If you're poor, you do not pay taxes. They're not worried about paying taxes. That's the problem of the Ayalas. And they can absorb additional tax. So I think that's not a concern, no? Because really, the ones who will benefit do not pay taxes, no? What was the other point you were saying?
That was my main point because well, the third point, of course, because in the same debates, I remember Dr. Ona in the cabinet is a very positive person, but there were some people who were concerned that yun nga yung sa devolution, and that simply there are many LGUs na wala talagang kakayahan para ipondohan ang mga ganitong improvement. But that's why your charter school idea is so exciting, because
Yeah.
you bring together the efficiency of the private sector with the mandate given to the public
Yeah.
sphere.
Yeah. The other thing is why I was proposing yung fourth proposal ko is a Philippine Educational Development Fund, because like sa PhilHealth, when PhilHealth started, the only members are those who can pay the premium.
Yes.
And then because the system is set up, pumasok yung local government, sabi niya, i-register mo yung employees namin, kaming magbabayad ng premium. Then eventually they say, ilagay mo yung mga homeless, yung mga kaming magbabayad ng premium. So ang ganda sa PhilHealth, there are different kinds of members. In addition to that, do you know that the reason why PhilHealth became very successful is because of the syntax? No?
Yeah.
They get about 100 billion from the syntax. Okay, the theory there of the Department of Health is, if you're a smoker and drinker, you put pressure on the health system, and therefore you pay more taxes. No, then they get, I think, 50% or 40% of the earnings of PAGCOR and PhilHealth. That's why I want to set up a system wherein the poorest can be funded not only by the government appropriations, but let's say one of my argument is, why is it that we're always against mining because it depletes our natural resources? Why don't we tax the mining industry and say we can justify depleting our natural resources if it will be used to enhance our human resources? So I'm thinking of how do you fund it. No, now it's very interesting. There's actually a fund for funding private education. It's called FAPE, Fund for Assistance to Private Education, which was funded the first Marcos, and it came from the reparation of Congress. So it was set up. It can accept anything, but it started with a fund of about 200 million. I'm sorry. It's only now up to 250 after 50 years. I want to grow that. And in fact, what happened is yung sa FAPE, they didn't have anything to do. They started managing the voucher. They spun off an organization called PIAC, Private Education Assistance Committee, and they're the one actually managing the vouchers. That's one of the reasons why it's successful. No, it's not run by DepEd. It's run by PIAC. But because they have a contract with them, but that can be severed anytime. So I wanted to be legalized. But we have to solve the problem of financing education. No, and my argument is the priority should be in basic education. Because if we do not solve basic education, the people who will go to higher education are not the poor.
Yeah.
It will be the higher income, because na-screen out na yung just from the beginning. That's why you have to start with basic. In fact, you have to start with what they call early childhood education. Yung tinatawag na malnutrition. Again, that's another problem that we have.
Stunting, Professor.
Stunting. We have a stunting. Pag stunting, wala na eh. I mean, you have to solve the problem there.
Disability, no? Professor, if I may add to the conversation, and thank you, Manolo, for the expanding the no. There's one point, Manolo, that Professor Limlingan mentioned in his article and in his paper. And Professor, because we've had several issues like the farmers, stunting.
Yeah.
And our conclusion and the support that we got for people to move was that realizing it requires a whole nation approach. Okay? One. And then two, Professor Limlingan, your proposal is precisely that. No? It's a whole nation approach, but very organized, no, in an ecosystem, no, like because you have to guard against the corruption.
Yeah. Okay.
But that can be done.
As a reformer is really, as much as possible, do not deal with the bureaucracy. No? Uh, in business, we call that the agency problem. Like, for example, in business, I'm a stockholder. I then not run the company. So I hire professional manager to run it. I'm the principal, they're the agent. But I cannot be sure that the agent will act in my interest.
Okay.
Diba? They have their own agenda. Now, business, I am the principal, you have an agent. In government, okay, we are the voters. We elect politicians. They are our agents. But our politicians do not know how to run. So they get another agent called the bureaucrats. So can you imagine how complicated it is? That's why in one of my columns I cited, the Indian government bypassed everything, no? Because they had the national identity. They scrapped all the budget for Department of Agriculture. They send the money direct to the farmers. They send over $200 billion in 3 years to about 600 million farmers. Now, India exports wheat and rice. They used to have a famine. Okay, so it's being tried now by uh, by the government agriculture. They gave money to the farmers. They gave vouchers before. The Department of Agriculture, just like would buy the fertilizer and then give it to the farmers. The farmers had no choice. Now, there was a system set up recently where they're given vouchers. They use the vouchers to go to a dealer, a credit dealer, buy the fertilizer. I mean, with the voucher, and get it, and then the dealer just cashes it within a day. No, so the overall my overall approach is that you have to bypass the agent. And because of technology now, you can go direct to the farmers. Before, you could not go direct to the farmers. For me, the biggest benefit of technology is now you bypass the agent. Anyway, that's my general theory.
Meron na akong gustong banggitin in this regard, because I remember in every discussion of government, the one thing that always used to shock me or shocked me at the start was sa budget ng bawat ahensya, something like 60 to 80 to 85% of the budget goes for salaries, wages, and allowances.
Yeah.
So yung porsyento na pwedeng gamitin ng ahensya para sa trabaho ng ahensya ay maliit lamang. And every year, the number keeps growing. Problema lang dito, we have to realize that there are also people's lives on the line here. The bureaucrats who are going to become obsolete with this reform. Professor, what happens to them? May plano ba tayo? I mean, is there a golden parachute or something that can be done?
Okay. I again, for me, it's really education. No, like for example, we have a problem in our military pension, no, because it's not funded. I'm sure you're aware of that. And again, what's the reason for that? Because when we get our soldiers, we don't train them to have for a life outside. So they stay with us. In the US, ang objective nila is because they want everybody to be trained. Pag pinasok ka, they will give you all the education so you will leave the military. As you know, in a pension, the longer you stay in the organization, the higher is the pension. So sa military, kailangan after 2 years, the bulk of them, aalis, they'll get a job outside. So I think there are a lot of our bureaucrats who can come out with training. No, again, this is a problem, and that's why they're doing that. But that's why ang proposal ko is no more increases, and use the increases to give it direct to the farmer, because as you say, we have a 60% leakage.
60%.
Okay. Again, the theory kasi is that these people know better than the farmers. Okay? My view is that the farmers now are educated. They have cell phones. They have TikTok. So just give them the money. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm diverging Father Caluag, education. So go back to education. So
Yeah.
my approach has always been I'm working trying to get the senators and of course DepEd, no. As I said, mahina ako ang approach sa administrative.
So, I think no, it's a real challenge, Manolo, is to create the ecosystem. And I think part of creating the ecosystem, what do you do with trimming the bureaucracy? No, I think I agree with Dr. Limlingan. You have to trim. Well, maybe two things, Dr. Limlingan. No? Trim the bureaucracy, professionalize the bureaucracy, no? In the sense of training. Like if I can share this, when I was principal, Dr. Limlingan, your sons, diba, went through that time of Ateneo. I was still working there. My proposal for faculty development was, let's get them fresh out of college, idealistic. Let's get the best and the brightest, because we have 3 years to decide to make them permanent. I said after 2 years, we know who will do well and who will not do well. So as you said, Dr. Limlingan, let them go, no, after 2 years. Then I said, the ones who are good, let's offer them masters, even abroad. Let's put up a fund to send them abroad. Yeah. So you have 2 years. On the 3rd year, permanent. On the 4th year, you send them abroad. Let them get 1 or 2 year courses, 5 years. Then just ask around 10 to 15 years from them. So they have a total of 15 to 20 years of working with Ateneo. By the time they finish, they're around 42, 43. But my other piece in the puzzle is build up our faculty as a brilliant faculty. So by the time someone leaves a faculty, any corporation would grab that person. There is life after teaching, you know. It's that kind of Manolo. That kind of.
I beg to disagree with you, Father, no? Kasi once I was told they will put up this yung anti-monopoly or anti whatever. And they said, well, to do that, we have to get the brightest and the best. And we will pay them lowly salary. Okay. Sabi ko, in our case, I was just on the board of directors and they were telling me we have this plan. You know, this plan will succeed because it is idiot-proof. In other words, this system can run with ordinary people. If you did saints and geniuses to run an organization, forget it. Because they're in short supply. So that's why I'm always looking is can a grade 4 graduate run our operation? That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for geniuses because ang mahal ng bayad yan.
Professor Limlingan, I also don't believe in geniuses. When I say the best and the brightest, these are the most motivated, very mission-oriented.
Yes, and you have to be, The other thing I have to say, you have to be careful. When I worked at AI, we were accused, why did you train this military to mount coups? Remember, si Gringo Anasa is one of our famous graduates. And our defense is, by the time they take their masters from us, their values are already there. Yes. The values are inculcated in grade school and high school, not even college. After high school, wala ka nang magagawa. You can only teach them technique. That's why I always criticize all this institution building of World Bank and so forth. You know, like for example, you institutionalize BIR. You make them more efficient in determining how much bribe to ask. It's like institutionalizing the Houthis on how to fight better. The question is,
that's why I think
you have to get people of good intention because they have to be of good intention before you give them the tools. If you give the tools and you're not sure of their intention, don't do it.
Yes.
Anyway, that's my view, no.
But sa akin, Father and Professor, I mean the big problem, and again, this keeps coming back to every time we have a discussion sa Proyekto Pilipino, and it's the concept of absorptive capacity na naimpatyo ang ating pamahalaan dahil marami namang pera, kaya lang kulang ang mga taong marunong gumawa ng trabaho na kailangan gawin. They just
Manolo, may I add to that, gawin ng tama. Gawin ng tama.
Okay, so
you know
values and competence.
Yeah.
So
You
my
know, the
question,
improvement in collection of taxes is a curse on us. Before, government could act because it didn't have the money. Now you gave them the money,
but they can't
and you
act.
can see the damage that's being done.
But the other problem is we also have to get away from the mentality that public service is sacrifice. Personally, because I once did an experiment, and it was one of the few times that I got a pat on the back from Solita Monsor. But what I did was, hindi, I calculated in today's terms what does the pre-war salaries of our public servants were, to get an idea of, let's say, and a janitor in before the war, if they were alive today, would be getting 18,000 pesos a month. So a president would be getting something on the line of 10 to 16 million pesos a year. So my point was na if you talk to the older generation, they'll always say, nung panahon, noon, kung nasa gobyerno ka, marangal ang buhay mo. Well, you have to be able to afford it. You have to have the money to to have a home, send your kids to school, and remain honest. The temptations are away. And I said, as long as we have this mentality na bawal bigyan ng sapat na sweldo ang mga nasa pamahalaan, you're inviting corruption. In many ways, that's the lesson that Singapore taught us, that they pay top money.
Correct.
And
Manolo, the only exception to that is teaching.
That's true.
because it is a passion, or it's like a priesthood. But on the other,
but Professor, I mean, a good
well.
example is UP, where the counterbalance to this was the benefits nung araw, di ba? Yung you have a place to live.
You get scholarship abroad.
So
like an AIM, the pay is low, but I was able to get a scholarship to Harvard.
So maybe Manolo, Professor, we can wrap up. Or very interesting discussion, but maybe final words to close our episode. You want to go first, Manolo, or Professor?
Sa akin, this is exciting because it tells us that the fruit of experience is wisdom, and the fact that Professor Limlingan is sharing his wisdom is inspiring, because it gives us a concrete action plan that we can discuss and that could be implemented in the real world. And I'm very grateful for his sharing that with us. Sa akin, it also reminds us na yung mga pinag-usapan natin tungkol sa edukasyon, palaging pabalik ng babalik sa ilang problema. And hinimay ang mga problema na ito, and sa wakas, palapit na palapit tayo sa mga solusyon. But it shows you, again, if it takes a whole of nation approach, as Father Tito says, it also takes a multi-generational approach. This is where we can benefit from those who have been around the block. Show us the way without being unrealistic. Some of the things that Professor said were maybe a little harsh, but he can back it up with data and experience. And again, don't shoot the messenger, discuss the message.
Thank you, Manolo. Professor, may we have your...
Well, I really welcome this opportunity to be able to access a bigger audience. No, as you know, I'm a teacher, and my goal is always to teach, and I don't have a platform for this. No, and I'm so grateful that I got this platform. When I get interviewed in let's say on TV, I only have a few seconds. I have to say a short sentence. Now, I cannot explain in detail, because in 30 seconds, tell us what your whole program is. So this one, I think you gave me about an hour. No, so I'm so grateful for that, and I'm hopeful that with technology, this can be disseminated. No, that this discussion and hopefully these views, it will be in YouTube. No, so that it can be circulated. No, and I'm hoping I'll reach a wider audience because really we have a problem in education. Hopefully, in my view, it's in public education, not in private education. So the problem is not as big as we thought and not as hopeless as we think.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
That is, I think that is, Manolo, the fruit of wisdom to be able to really put it that way. So, Professor, maraming salamat po, and we hope we can have you back. And
anytime.
we can
That's
focus
the
on very
being retired.
Yeah, we can focus, Professor.
And having successfully transferred to the business to my children, I have nothing to do.
So, Manolo, we can focus on very specific topics that the professor shared with us. So, maraming salamat po, mga kaproyekto, and we hope that you learned a lot. And please let us know also what you want us to discuss further. So, Professor Limlingan, Manolo, maraming salamat. Ito po ang Proyekto Pilipino.
Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Poverty in the country has become a never-ending cycle passed down through generations as continued neglect, disempowerment, discrimination, and dehumanization become the norm in these communities. In 2014, Alay Kapwa Program and Caritas Italiana launched the Alay Kapwa Integral Evangelization, Resource Mobilization, and Livelihood Development Program. This sought to implement the self-help group program in 4 partner pilot dioceses: Diocese of Tagum, Diocese of Naval, Diocese of Ilagan, and the Apostolic Vicariate of Puerto Princesa. The self-help groups is an informal association of poor women in these communities, composed of 15 to 20 members. They voluntarily come together to make small, regular savings contributions over a few months until they have enough capital to begin lending to needy members.
During the orientation of the SHEG program, inaangkin nila yung programa sa kanila yun eh. It is very opposite when it comes to the outlook of the dole out kasi galing sa kanila talaga. Yung puhunan sa kanila, hindi sa ibang tao.
SHEG has a broad anti-poverty agenda. This includes developing leadership abilities, skills training in micro-entrepreneurship, improving households, partnerships with schools, and building strong communities.
Tinulungan po ako ng mga SHEG member ko. Nagkaroon ako ng puhunan po, kaya nagluluto na po ako ng mani. Mahirap po dati kasi nagsasaka lang po kami. Sa isang araw 150, 200 ganun po. Dito sa pagmamani po isang sako po nakukuha po akong kumita ng 2,000 po.
SHEG allows the poor to find more opportunities to serve others, transforming them into better Christians and human beings. Parish priests have seen the deepening of faith among their respective parishes as a result of active participation in the SHEG program among parishioners.
Dati, madalas kami nag-aaway, gawa kami siya na walang pera. Ngayon, nakasali na kami sa SHEG at binigyan kami ng Panginoon ng blessing, nakahiram kami at makakain na rin kami. Gawa ng SHEG. Malaki talagang tulong yun sa amin. Hindi na kami nag-aaway, nagmamahalan na kami forever. Dati hindi pa kami nakasali ng SHEG, sa isang taon, kaisa lang kami nagsisimba. Ngayon, nakasali kami linggo-linggo na.
As members of self-help groups form a bond with each other, they find meaning and purpose in their lives. As they start sharing their problems with the group, social issues are discussed and they develop trust. They then become empowered to create solutions based on each other's needs.
Blackout kami kasi talagang sunog lahat. Yung mga listahan namin, yung pera namin, sunog yun. Awa ng Diyos ay nakakabangon na rin kami. Yung aming mga miyembro na walang bahay, ngayon ay nakakatayo na rin.
Parang nawalan kami ng pag-asa. Na-discourage talaga yung mga tao. Pero sa awa at tulong ng Panginoon, nabuo muli kami.
Naranasan man namin yung hirap dahil sa sunog na yun. Pero sa ngayon dahil sa aming pagtutulungan, pagmamalasakit sa bawat isa, ay unti-unti na po kami nakabangon.
The program employs specific strategies intended to liberate the poor, especially women. By teaching them to save on a regular basis, SHEG seeks to empower them to become their husbands' more effective partners in developing the economic strength of the family.
Akala ko wala na akong iba gagawin sa buhay kung hindi sa bahay lang. Pero nung dumating yung SHEG, nadagdagan pala yung tungkulin ko sa community namin. Nagtitrain na ako sa ibang community kung paano ibuo ang SHEG, paano mag-savings, at saka sa mga bata din. Tinutulungan namin yung mga bata paano sila mag-savings, saan pupunta yung pera nila. Kaya noon, yung mga bata, kahit ano-ano lang gagawin nila sa pera. Ngayon, pagdating ng linggo, nagsisavings na sila, malaki na yung sinisavings nila.
And although the project was initially designed for women, it soon became apparent that there was a need to include and organize men's groups as well. Soon thereafter, male members were introduced to the SHEG formation.
Isang malaking pasasalamat ang nais naming iparating sa Caritas Italiana through Alay Kapwa program ng CBC Pinasa. Dahil naging daluyan ng buhay, dugtungan ng pagmamahal at ng kapatiran ang SHEG program na dinala ng Alay Kapwa program dito sa aming diocese.
Empowerment through SHEG has proven to be effective. The social development approach in the grassroots level has helped in giving purpose and meaning to those whose lives were lived in uncertainties and constant degradation. Because of this empowerment, they have taken control of the direction of their lives, and the communities were driven to meet goals to help each other in combating poverty.